Hi, I'm Alex Kaufman. I'm with the USGS. I'm the product owner for the topoBuilder application. And I'm going to go over what topoBuilder is, do a demo, and explain what on-demand topos are and the difference between USGS standard topos and on-demand topos. So topoBuilder application is an application to make your own topographic map on demand, centered where you want, in multiple formats, and with the best available national map data. topoBuilder supports responsible resource management, such as land cover, vegetation, soil geology, sustainable management of watersheds, etc., sustainable energy development, such as potential locations for new energy resources, hazard risk reduction, such as urban planning for landslides, tornadoes, soil types, etc., recreation and tourism for trails and hiking, and public health and security. So now I will switch to a demo. Oh no. Okay. Okay. So this is the application. So it's pretty standard. It's taking a minute to load here, but it should be familiar to most of you for a web map application. So we have the version up here, which will link to the release notes for each version. We're on 1.3.3, so we've had 3 major releases since its launch earlier this year. Apparently everything is taking forever, so I apologize. So yeah, you can find here the release notes. It'll tell you what enhancements were made, what bug fixes we addressed, and so on. I'll go back to the application. We also have a banner, which will tell you more information if you're interested. We have a link to the user guide. And then we have an address locator, your standard zoom in, zoom out functionality, your home screen, and some base maps, so some imagery, some shader relief. And for our demo purposes, I will zoom into the Grand Canyon. Okay. This is very zoomed out. So once you have kind of a general idea of what you want your map, you advance the workflow. You first select your map type. Right now we only offer the 7.5 minute topo, which is a 1 to 24,000 scale in the contiguous United States, or 1 to 25,000 in Alaska and Hawaii, and 1 to 20,000 in the territories. So you select next, and then you'll have your selection options. So the main feature is the custom selection, but we also have your standard on-grid selections. If you want to see the grids, you can click the zoom in to display grids. It'll load. You can zoom in a few more levels, and it'll actually populate the standardized names that you are familiar with if you know US topos. And let's say this is the area I'm interested in, this little bend over here. So I can select that location. And instead of having to do 4 grid selections to get this center place, I can do this custom selection. I can also move it slightly if I know that it's off by a little bit, so you can make your adjustments there. Oh, but bear with me. Okay, so then once you have your selection, you can see all these different options on the left side. We call this like the map watch list over here. So we have a standard naming convention of 7.5 minute topo, 1 to iterate through until you have all the ones you want. We have a zoom and pan to option. We have a delete. You can collapse these options for ease of use if you have multiple maps in your watch list. So we have 2 types of output. We have PDF and GeoTIFF. And then we have contour smoothing, so low, medium, and high. We have a little info icon that pops out that defines what contour smoothing is. For those of you familiar, medium is going to be the default and the most familiar for US topos. Low is more resolution, higher detail, high smoothing, less resolution, more generalized. Once you have those selected and you have your finalized options, there's also this edit layer functionality. So this was introduced relatively recently. This is most relevant for your TIFFs because you can't turn on and off layers within TIFFs, and a PDF you can if you know what you're doing. So let's say you don't need imagery, you can go down, you can deselect. By default, everything is selected. And then let's say you also don't want terrains, you don't want shaded relief and contours, you just want the roads and hydrography, things like that. So once you have your edit layers selected, you'll get a little tag here called user-defined content to indicate that you have activated that functionality. Right now, those are edit layers applied globally. So that means that all your maps within your cart and your watch list will have the same edit customization on it. Right now, that's the way it's going to be until we have added functionality in future iterations. Once you have your map selection, so I'll just make a couple more. Do a grid one. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so then you actually go in, and you can either do select all or you can select individually. So I'll just do that, and you have an add option. Once it adds, you can see that the number in the cart goes up by the number of maps you've added. We have a simple go to cart option here, or you can click the cart in the side panel. Within the cart, you'll see that the map format type, 7.5 minute topo, has the categorical option, and then the maps listed underneath, and within those maps it displays the options that you've selected. So on-grid versus custom extent, the contour smoothing, and then the output type, PDF versus TIFF. And then if it has user-defined content or the edit layer functionality enabled, it'll also indicate that here. So once you have those selected, you'll do a checkout. I'm not going to actually do the checkout, but you just enter an email, and it'll I'll get to my slides and I'll show you that. But we also, really quickly, we have some resources for you. So we have help documentation, user guide for the application, user guide for the product, some known issues, release notes, and then resources to other topographic products if you're interested, as well as an email for the help desk to forward any recommendations, bugs, anything that you have trouble with or you want to let us know. Okay, how do I go back to my slides? It's always good to have a backup in case the live demo doesn't work, so that's what all that was. Okay, so once you actually do your checkout, you'll get an email indicating that it was submitted successfully. It'll list all the maps you provided in that checkout, and then you'll get an email per map you have delivered, and it'll include the expiration date for that link as well as the link itself to download. That link is shareable. You can provide it to colleagues, friends, whoever you need to get it to. We say it takes up to 5 days for your map to be delivered. Usually within 24 hours it'll be delivered. If you have some sort of issue, you'll get a map failure or map export failure, and it'll direct you to reach out to the help desk, and then we'll either retry that map selection or we'll log an underlying bug and get back to you with a new resource or a new way to get that data. So now I'll explain the difference between the OnDemand topos and the US topos that you're all familiar with. So as I mentioned, if you wanted to have that area of interest, you would have to get 4 on-grid selections and download those each individually and then bring them in, stitch them, or manually, if you're printing them out, manually cut them, tape them together. With on-demand, you can actually just request that area on the fly and we will provide it to you in a download link. So US Topo is staged, on-demand is on-demand. US Topo is the standard USGS quads versus custom extent. We have the contours generated on the fly for on-demand topos versus pre-designed contours. The topos are refreshed on a 3-year cycle versus us using the most current national map data available. And the US topos are free to print, for us, it's also free. For on-demand topo, it's also free. And most maps are delivered within 24 hours, but we do ask, give us up to 5 days in case things are going wrong or if there's a large hit, like a lot of people asking. So these are the 2 comparisons side by side. So they're very similar in design. We try to make them as uniform as possible, but because of the processing that we're doing on the fly, we can't have it one-to-one exact matches. US topos go through some manual labeling and some more manual edits that go into the design process, so we have to do auto labeling and the contour generation on the fly, like I said. So some things to note, we have a new logo. The on-demand topo has its own logo and branding. We have the metadata or the info for where the data is coming from, slightly different than the standard US topo. We have labeling differences. Like I said, the US topos are manually, or labels are manually edited to make it more cartographically pleasing. We have to do auto labeling. We also have some differences in trail symbology. I think it's going to get implemented in US topo eventually, but right now we're doing this symbology while they're on the old symbology. And then we have this little info icon on the contour smoothing, contour interval, and whether you had user-defined content selected or not. Another thing to note is since we have the custom selection, it's not going to have your reference grid exactly the same. On US Topo, you'll see the adjacent quads all listed out. For us, we have the intersecting quads and those labeled directly within the reference layer. So things to note coming up. For our next major release, hopefully later this year, you'll see an update to the email notification. We're trying to make it more user-friendly, have it more available to anyone who would like to access it. And we're also going to include map tracking capabilities, so if you submit a map request, you'll be able to look that up and see the status of that map request. In 2023, we're looking to move to a new scale, so 1 to 100,000. So we'll still offer the 7.5-minute topos, but we'll also include this larger scale map option. Right now, we're in the process of going through the generalization of our data to make that possible, as well as the integration into the front end. And then in the future, these are some of the items we're looking to integrate. So more scales, larger and smaller. Additional map types, user-added content, so that could be service layers or digitizing within the application. Doing a custom area of interest instead of just the grid outline, maybe an actual delineated area of interest. The GIS data download, which most of the data or all the data should be available to download regardless, but this would have a link within the application to point you to that. And print functionality tied to the USGS store, similar to US Topos. So to just recap, topoBuilder uses the best available data from the national map to create on-demand topo maps. You can choose the file format, the area of interest, your contour smoothness, and the national map data content you would like to choose or exclude within your maps. Additional customizations, scales, and map types are planned for the future releases. And US Topo stage maps continue to be produced and are available as free and immediate downloads for anyone who would like on-grid selections. And yeah, this is my contact information, so akaufman@usgs.gov, or you could reach out to the tnm_help@usgs.gov. And here's a little info poster, but I'm going to switch to this for a QR code if anyone would like to go and request some maps. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We have time for one question.
Thanks for that great presentation. What other additional map types, like what kinds?
So we've talked about doing hazard mapping potentially. So partnering with GERT, who does that right now, to integrate that into the platform as well. So that way, if there's a hurricane or a fire, something that the population would be interested in, we'd have those maps staged and ready and integrated into the application. Thank you.